Welcome, friends and family, and all those people that like me talking absolute rubbish on a Sunday, to Blog 17, dated 19th of June 2022. Been a bit of a strange week, as they all have been while I've been off work, but I've tried to remain buoyant, not succeeded as best as I possibly can, and I've gotten a bit despondent, but hey, we have to keep moving forward, and the world is in a mess right now. So with that nice little introduction, we'll get the news out the way, and as most of you know, I'm not at work at the moment, and so I'm not listening to the news like I would on my travels to work and my travels back to home. But what I picked up upon was the war, which is still continuing. Johnson and Zelensky have visited the front line in Ukraine. I think this is quite important. There's a lot that needs fixing in the UK, but we've got to recognise that we've got to get some sort of stabilisation, and this war is just too close. So I don't have any terrifically bad or good feelings about that particular news articles that I have sort of heard about this week. I also know that Boris Johnson has praised the veterans of the Falklands, because I think it's the 40th anniversary last week. The Falklands, it was something that was very big for me growing up. I didn't quite really understood it as somebody who's much older now probably appreciates it a lot and understands it a bit more. But it was something that happened. It's over with now, and we should never forget, and we should learn and move forward from it. You know, in my work, we always mention things like a lessons learned document. Every time I've been involved in a project, every time that something has been rolled out, we talk about a document that we must write at the end called a lessons learned, so that we learn from the mistakes, don't do those again, and move forward so it'll be quicker next time. I don't think the company I work with actually has one of these documents. They may do, but we were very big on them on the company I worked with for the probation service, and we were for Lloyd's Bank. But I'm pretty sure the government should really embrace a lessons learned document, because I don't think we learn anything, to be quite honest. And the big news story really, or stories should I say, this week has been the weather this week, which has been very hot, and there have been stupid articles that I've listened to a little bit this week in regards to how to keep cool at night. You know, like, don't get under your quilt. Yeah, well, duh. All sorts of stuff about keeping cool. And, you know, stuff that we ought to know, like put plenty of factor 15 cream on if you're going out into the sun for any length of time. If you've got some sort of allergy, for pollen and so forth, take your allergy tablets. Oh, you know what I mean? Common sense stuff, guys, for God's sake. But the one that's concerning a lot of people, and something that I do totally understand from the workers of this industry, but the rail strike is going to happen this week. It's going to affect millions of people, and I do know that really the analogy of he who shouts loudest gets heard is sort of present here, because they have been fighting for years and years and years for more money and better conditions, and we all want more money, but the conditions are something that I totally feel for them, because they do a damn good job. Very hard circumstances. It doesn't seem like the government gives a damn. But then again, I think that's the impression for anything really that involves the government, which is a shame, because I'm pretty sure they're not all like that. But I wish them well. I do hope that everybody travels safely. I do hope that there is some quick resolution, but being as this has been going on for years and years, I do see this now as being a very fraught situation. And that ends the news. Out the way again in under 5 minutes. Fantastic. So the reason I've been a bit despondent, well, we're 3 weeks into a 4-week sick note. In this third week, I've taken more blood pressure readings. And the one thing that I've noticed is I've done some tests for myself. You know, I've sat down and thought about my situation and then done a blood pressure check, and it's incredibly high. I've tried to clear my mind, check the blood pressure readings, and they've been middling. And done blood pressure checks just after taking my tablets, and then last thing at night after relaxing. And the thing about the relaxing ones, towards the end you would think that they would be middling again, but they've actually been slightly good. You know, hypertension level 1 compared to hypertension level 3, which is where I generally am. But the tablets should be wearing down a little bit, even though I take them every day. You know, which means that you build up a condition, you know, a resilience to things. It's been a mix of figures. I've given them all to the doctor to look at, and I will therefore need to speak to the doctor on Tuesday and see whether I'm well enough to go back to work, because if the mere mention of the word work for the company that I work for raises my blood pressure, then we've got to start thinking of not increasing the dosage of tablets, but a different tablet altogether. And if a different tablet altogether is needed, it will take several weeks for it to take effect. I'm trying to become less stressed about it, but it's not the fact that I'm scared of work. It's working for a company that I don't think gives a damn about me, that basically raises my blood pressure. It's that resentment thing, you know, the why am I doing this, all this great work for you when you don't care. That really is very difficult for me to block out, and especially if I was doing the work there and then. There is a good thing about doing work. You clear your mind when you're concentrating on something. So it might not be as bad as what I think, but right now I'm very nervous and very despondent about it all. But anyway, that's me. Got that out of the way in a couple of minutes. Thanks very much, guys, for all your support. I'll tell you what, the best thing about the week is always answering your comments. I'm starting to get caught up. I think it takes me a while because I'm a little bit verbose. I like to show my appreciation by writing a good answer, not something that just says thanks very much, bye, or you know, as I always put, Excelsior at the end from Stan Lee. So bear with me because I am still getting caught up, but I hope I haven't missed any questions. So let's talk about the people that have actually made a comment across at least one of my videos this week, because there has been more than one. So a big thank you, and I do mean this, to everyone here. Milfy Swimbuckle, LFC Gamer, Down the Rabbit Hole, Jambon, Robert Morrison, Colin Jones, Colin Ferguson, Panther UK, Wee Bob Art, Steve's 8-Bit Gaming, and Martroid. I didn't see one from Cauldron this week, and he did comment that he does like to hear his name because he and his mum listen to my waffles, which gives me a big smile that someone like a mother is watching this. But I didn't see anything this week, but I wish him well. So let's get to some questions, shall we? Might as well get the questions out of the way. Some of them I have answered, obviously, in comment form because I think they were very close to something I've already answered. I hope I've given, though, the answer, a good justification to your question and a good answer. So let's start off with Colin Ferguson, because he's, I think, somebody who's quite a fan of some of the film aspects of my retro blog, and that is there any movie I would never watch? And that's like I say, I like tricky ones because I've never said never to really anything. If you don't experience something once, then you can't really have an opinion on it. So I don't think there is I have to word this quite carefully, a big budget or production film that I wouldn't see. Are there things, therefore, that I'm probably missing? Yes, because I think I would draw the line at something like animal sex, off the top of my head, where I think there was a big thing in the 70s about the porn industry trying to do something different and use animals in pornographic material. No, never watch it, never will. Makes me feel sick, to be quite honest. But that's a completely different movie industry, isn't it? Really. I've seen horror films with arms being chopped off, with screwdrivers going into eyeballs and all sorts of stuff. But I do know that in my mind that this was all just filmed. I don't think I'd want to watch a proper terrorist film torture video. I think we've seen snippets of them in the news. From what I can tell, if they really do go to that level of showing torture, of maiming someone and disabling someone permanently for their cause, no, I don't want to watch those either. So I hope that answers that. Panther UK, my old mate, who's got such a big head and does absolutely fantastic videos, hate you, not really, has asked if there was, is there a favourite pudding or sweet or after dinner meal that I have? Which is it? And therefore, I think what he was trying to get at was it would be the only thing I could have for the rest of my life. And that last part would probably mean, no, I can't think of something that I'd want to have repeatedly every day. But have I got a favourite pudding? I'm more a savoury person than a sweet person. But I do like a pudding or a sweet, as they call it. And I think one of my favourites when I used to go to restaurants when I was on the road with companies, and you were able to have a budget of having a meal and a drink and so forth on the road. I used to have profiteroles. I used to love profiteroles. They may only be balls of eclairs with cream on top, and that means that you could just have an eclair. But I really did like those. But if there was one that I would have to have, I think it would be that. But it'd be very close to a cheesecake, just a plain cheesecake, no fruit on it, like a vanilla cheesecake or a chocolate marble cheesecake. I think there's something about the base which is so moist but thick that there is about a cheesecake. But other than that, I think we all like our eclairs and jam donuts and ring donuts and all of those, flapjacks, all of that sort of stuff. But I'm going to go with profiteroles. Hope that answers that. Moving on. So Wee Bob actually asked a question: is there a favourite art that is out there for me? And I didn't know whether he meant by a person or a form of art. because I've recently done a video on my favourite comic book artist. But he did mention H.R. Giger, and to be quite honest, he was a person that I followed, like I think a lot of people did when Alien came out. Don't know quite how well known he was before that, but then, you know, he's done work on Species and so forth, you know. So yes, H.R. Giger would be one. But if there were two types of art beyond comic book art and anatomy art, I think I'd choose, I think there was a person called Chelsea Bonestell. That person did space art. What do I mean by space art? And it's, space art is space enacted type art with a part of fact in it. I think he was part of NASA for a while, designing what things could look like if there was a space war, if there was you know, a new world, and what the planet might look like from the ground. I've always liked those fantasy type scenes, so that would be one. But I tell you another thing that I really like, but it's very close to comics, and that is the storyboard artist of a film. Now, if I was good at art, I would love to be a storyboard artist, somebody that plans out every frame for a big scene. There's a famous one for Psycho, believe it or not. I think it was Soul Bass. Now, they planned out the shower scene with the knife scene that lasted, you know, literally 20-30 seconds with the famous score by Bernard Herrmann. And basically it cuts and interweaves between the knife, the body, the water, the different angles. So to storyboard that is an immense thing to do. And believe it or not, if you look at the storyboard, it's very close to the finished product. So I hope I've given a couple of types there, and I hope I've given a couple of names as well for that. And then Milfy Swimbuckle. How could I forget Milfy Swimbuckle? Now, his is the most complex and most comprehensive questions, and they're always the ones that have made me think for at least half a day to a day on things. And he asked a question which he's given before to Mainmeister, but he wanted to know what my opinion were. And it's broken down really into 3 sections. So if I was to invite to a dinner party a person who is alive, who would I invite and why? Then repeat that for somebody who's dead and why? And then repeat again for fictional characters from TV and films to a dinner party and why? Oh, now believe it or not, the easiest section was dead people. And I do, after remembering the question that went to Mainmeister, I've ruled out family, because obviously my father would be top of the list, and other family people that I've lost over a number of years that I would love to have another day with. So I've tried to cut it to 3, but when it comes to the dead ones, it's incredibly hard. You can see me scratching my head going, oh my god. So, invite to a dinner party that's live and why? The 3 I've chosen are John Romita, the comic book artist that I'm favourable to, who drew Spider-Man and many covers for Marvel over the years. Ridley Scott, for many years my favourite director. And Bill Hurd, mostly known for his design work on the Commodore 128 and lesser detail on the Plus4, the Commodore 16 and so forth, but never take away the fact that although those are considered losses to Commodore, they are great designs. You know, I think the Plus4 actually look really lovely. So I think they're the reason why are mostly obvious for me. You know, I mean, when it comes to John Romita, he's been a childhood artist hero of mine since 1972, when I'd probably read the first comic with his drawings in them. But he's still alive, and he's in his 90s, and so many people I've seen videos of have been to conventions and had a signature and so forth. Now, I've got his signature, and it's an authenticated signature, but I've never met him. So I would have so many questions, you know, and I think I could think of some probably ones that haven't been asked for before. But he's pretty much not a recluse, but he deserves a bit of relaxation time. He does come back for the odd cover, the odd couple of pages in modern comics these days, but it's very, very far between, and he doesn't really go to conventions anymore. And he's a very shy person, so he doesn't get interviewed much. Ridley Scott's an obvious one because he was a favourite director of mine, and the thing about Ridley Scott is that I always liked his early pacing and his visual element. Now, the visual element might not come from Ridley Scott, but I think he's come out with too much quality product to not think of him as a great director. When you think of all the adverts, you know, the Hovis bread adverts, and when you think of the early films, Alien, you know, and Blade Runner and so forth, and even some of the modern ones, you know, I mean, there's Gladiator, which I don't consider to be, although 22 years old, don't consider to be ancient. He still has a flair, and he still has something that makes me continue to watch to the end. I've never walked out of a Ridley Scott film, take it like that. And Bill Hurd, well, most of the Commodore crew that designed the chips, the casing of the original Commodore 64, and worked on the VIC-20 and Commodore 64 projects are mostly dead. But Bill Hurd worked with them while they were still alive, so I think I would have probably a lot of questions for him. So those are the ones that are alive. That are dead. Now this is where it gets hard, because I even started to cheat and say, can I have two people that would count as one, because I'd be asking them the same question but asking for their reply. And a couple of examples of that would be like Stanley and Steve Ditko, the creators of Spider-Man, because they both died in the same year. But there are so many questions about why they fell out and didn't work together much afterwards. Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, two of my favourite comedy actors, both now sadly left us. Muhammad Ali, a big sporting person that I followed with my father. I would have so many questions, and I think I would go beyond the Parkinson questions. You know, I'd go beyond those ones and probably ask an awful lot of things about the later part of his life. And then, of course, there's my old favourite, which is Jay Miner, because I was so in awe of Jay Miner and his chip design. You know, the chips he invented for the Atari systems and the Amiga systems they speak for themselves. So I would definitely have questions for Jay Miner. So I've mentioned no end of names there. The reasons why I think they stand out as obvious, and I've given a couple of examples. And then there are characters from TV, movie, and films, which is the fun one, because I've read so much, I've watched so much, I've listened to so much. But a couple of fictional characters. There's the obvious one, Spider-Man. And I don't know what I'd ask him. But that would be an obvious one. The Doctor from Doctor Who. Probably because after the party I'd want to go back in the TARDIS and go off. And go anywhere I wanted. That would be absolutely fantastic. And then as a funny one, I'd like to invite Zaphod Beetlebrox from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, just so I could understand what the recipe is for the Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster. And if I've just talked a load of gibberish to you, I apologise, but Douglas Adams and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a big favourite of mine. So I hope that answers that question. And then we just get to what I've been doing this week. Not an awful lot. When it comes to TV, I've continued to watch Obi-Wan, which is now approaching the end, and I've actually enjoyed that. I've gone past all the, oh, but you can't like it because crap that you see on so many reviews, and just sat back and enjoyed it. I started to watch Miss Marvel, which is another Disney show based around Marvel characters, but I'm sorry, but I just cannot get into it. I'm sure it's absolutely fantastic for the audience that it's aimed at, and it's nothing to do with diversity that stops me from watching it. It's a bit juvenile for me. I don't really have any feelings for that ethnic group or a fun story for them to watch and that others can appreciate. No, I'm sorry, it goes beyond that for me. I just don't have any feelings for that at all. Star Trek Strange New Worlds continues to grip me a little bit. Now, Paramount Plus is actually being broadcast on the Sky Network over here on the 22nd. That's next week, and it's free. But I've been watching it, by using a VPN, and I'm about 6 or 7 weeks in, so I'm quite far in. But it does mean that maybe I can have a few more conversations with people that can finally now get to watch it. That'd be good. But I tell you a good series that's just come out that I've really gotten to grips with, and don't know why, because I've seen so many of this type of show, and that is the Lazarus Project on Sky, which came out on Thursday this week, which is based around Groundhog Day type format. What happens is the day doesn't get reset every day, but the day gets reset when the world is completely destroyed, and it goes, and they can reset it back to only the day point before it happens, and they can continue to reset it so you can keep moving forward. So if they reset it in June 2022 and everything is fine, they can then go back to June 2023 the next time the world is blown up or something. There are people that can remember what happened and alter the course of the reason why the world blew up. So there are many aspects of this, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, where they reset the clock about 15 times, going back to the same day before it happened, so that they could change things. And it's an interesting proposition, because the characters, if somebody dies close to them, they can't reset the clock for themselves. But there are interesting things about it. One interesting aspect is there's a set of figures where they said that 4 babies are born every second, and then they times it by how many that is a minute, how many that is an hour, a day, a week, and then a month, and then a year. And if you reset the clock, all of those lives are wiped out, but the clock continues with how many babies, so it would be different babies. So if you reset the clock to, if you had the birth on the day of the resetting, you've lost the baby. And there was one that could actually cross the timelines and remember, who had the baby, the clock had to be reset, and lost the baby and the whole thing. So it's interesting, definitely worth a watch. So what else have I been watching? Mostly by, who I've mentioned before, but I'll still mention them. Mainmeister is a stay put with me. I didn't enjoy his waffle this week, I have to say, but that's because, and that's a good thing, because it's just I'm sometimes polar opposite on some things that are being talked about, and in this week there was a little bit about politics. Why is fuel as high as it is? I think this and that and so forth. And where I totally agree with something needs to be done with it, the reasons that they're high aren't always the same, based on things that I've read. So, you know, you get good ones, you get bad ones. Nothing bad totally at all with Mainmeister's waffle. It's just that there were aspects of it that I know a little bit differently about it, and so therefore we'll have a different standpoint on it. There's been talk about Scottish referendums again and independence, and I'm pretty sure that when that independence occurs, they're going to see prices and all sorts of stuff. I won't go into it, but I could throw the kitchen sink at some of the things that are mentioned. And those are good things, because I could just imagine Mainmeister standing in front of me, and I'd be going, yeah. And he'd be laughing, and I'd be laughing, and then we'd have a pint, and it'd be like, it'd just be total fun. It's just when it's a static talk, and you can't, all you can do is chat to the screen. No, you're wrong. You know. Anyway, down the rabbit hole. Not too much output this week, Rabbit. Missed you this week, mate. But he did do an Atari 2600 game on one I've never seen before. Definitely worth a watch. It's very short. So fun. It's fun for the same reason for the next person, which is Steve 8-Bit Gaming. Because he's reached a figure of subscribers of 20. Please, let's increase that number. I mean, I've been static on mine at around about 48. But Steve deserves to have more subscribers, and only in a couple of weeks has he got to that number. And he gave a special 20 subscriber video which mentioned me, and I'm not one for crying, but it brought it did make me well up a little bit, because if I've ever influenced anything, it's almost like rocking horse shit. It never happens. So when somebody says it has, you sort of think that you've reached a milestone point. So that was probably the biggest cheer up I've ever had, other than when Mainmeister asks me to come onto his show, or whenever he praises me, or whether he actually says something nice to me. Not very often. He doesn't know how much he cheers me up. And that goes the same for Panther. We've got a bond, Panther, Mainmeister, and I, that goes beyond, I think, a little bit of friendship, because I think we both respect each other's opinions, and we've both had the same experiences in different areas at different times, and therefore we're just lifelong buddies, which is great. Steve's 8-Bit, please go to that. Please go to Mainmeister as well. Ponder. So Ponder hasn't really done too much, I believe, this week, which surprises me, because I've always been entertained by Ponder's videos. But he did, in the Discord channel, show a horrific car crash, and showed some pictures of horrible car drivers that don't give cyclists enough space. And I'm very familiar with the fact that that happens, and every time he goes on the road, he faces death, like I do in a car, but not to the same extent as he does. A bike is a very flimsy device. The only thing I have about cyclists that upset me is when they dart in and out, or they go on the pavements. That annoys me. But the people that actually use the bike lanes and just need to get to work, and are just trying to cycle to work to be healthy and to think of the environment, and some arsehole cuts you up or doesn't give you enough room, well, they're just, like I say, arseholes. Can't say any more than that. But there was an interesting discussion that I had with someone saying, yeah, and they're mostly Audi drivers. I disagree. I'll tell you who they are. They're just obnoxious arseholes who don't think of anything other than themselves. And I've known several people like that that drive BMWs, Fords, Peugeots, or anything else. But the biggest problem I have, I think, the most are actually people on the school run. I think they think the roads are theirs. Oh, I could talk about that for a while. Other than that, I've just been watching some of the other channels that are nothing to do with friends and family and people that watch this channel. Tronics fixes one. He's been fixing a load of consoles and computers and stuff that's a little bit more obscure. And I always find those fun and amusing. I think he's heavily pushing his channel at the moment, and I think it's because he's finding it difficult now to maintain a business, which his is. His is a YouTube business, so don't watch it if you don't like businesses. But they're always fun and entertaining. Worth a buy. I find his comments amusing, but not necessarily do I watch his channel an awful lot. But if I want to laugh, I'll watch his reviews of games. And near mint condition is just a stay point for me because I'm a comic book collector, and he does a lot of work in regards to Marvel omnibuses. He knows what's coming out next year before anybody else does. So near mint condition is a stay point of mine. And then we'll just come to the things that have happened this week in regards to what I bought. Well, I didn't get too many responses to storage, which surprised me, but it doesn't matter. The solution is out there. I'm sure there is shelving that's out there. There are things that I can do which I already am aware of, which is just replace the things that you've bought again and get rid of the old ones. You know, they're all common sense ones, but the answers I got were absolutely great, and please continue to send those in if you want. But I've cancelled a lot of pre-orders now. The last big pre-order that's coming in is my comic books for the last 4 months, which is a good £400 or £500 worth of stuff. And I haven't reduced my order just yet, but that will be cut for definite if I don't get my job situation sorted. When it comes to steel books, I've cut an awful lot out that I think I can get away with the Blu-ray release, which I already have. Selling the Blu-ray would just only get me a fraction of it back, and there would be fees, seller fees. So I'm going to knock that on the head for now. I haven't tried Gumtree and other ones which don't have seller fees, but I'm in a small town, and a lot of people just wouldn't be interested in the stuff that I collect. But Batman came out this week. It's the steel book in a special case. And I'm looking forward to watching this one because I didn't see it at the cinema. And that's the only thing that came in. And I always sort of like talk about games that I used to play in the past. So, one major genre is the real-time strategy and godlike type games. And Sierra brought out a range. Here's one just example called Pharaoh. Which is a real-time strategy. You can see sort of like how the graphics looked, and these have now been modernized, and you can actually have that resolution now, and the same amount of detail. But I bought Caesar, I bought Lands of Olympus, you know, all those sorts of ones, heavily into them. They still work on modern hardware. They do take away so many hours. My God, the amount of days I pumped into whether I should open a store in the market that would give me a diplomacy with another town that would then give me money to buy this, that, and the other, and whether I should irrigate the Nile, and you know, I could go on forever. When it comes to role-playing games, there was a time where the role-playing game came to what I consider a milestone, and so we're talking about mid here, because I've played role-playing games from Ultima 1, and played all of those very, very early graphically not looking great games, and Temple of Apshine, all sorts. But this one was a milestone for me, which is Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, because it came out so bugged, it was terrible. But the story and the narrative, and the fact it's vampires again, held me for a long time. And as they kept fixing the bugs, the more I could progress, and I did actually complete it. I did buy the second one as well, the second Vampire Masquerade, but that's even worse bug-wise, and is known in history as being one of the most buggiest role-playing games out there. Didn't stop me enjoying it though. And then we come to probably, we mentioned Bullfrog an awful lot because they were quite innovative for all the platforms they were on. But I think Dungeon Keeper, and in this particular box it's showing Dungeon Keeper 2, I do understand, holds up. Probably because it brought in so many sorts of like different ideas. The fact that you're the baddie and you want people to be hurt, and you control minions that you can slap about with your hand, and it's all about greed and torture. And you designed by cutting out the land, your little dynasty and environment. It's just a game that I played to death, and still people are now doing their own versions like Dungeons, and it's timeless in a way. And just the last thing is that I think Rabbit wanted me to do a video in the future of Sinistar Unleashed because I hated it. It's probably likely to happen because this week I've done a couple of new walkthroughs. Well, not a walkthrough, but just showing off an old game in new colours is the best way to explain it. And another one on some comic book artwork, which I don't expect anybody really to watch. But I wanted to do it for Wee Bob because I thought he would appreciate an anatomy view of art. So that's the end. I hope you've enjoyed it. The comments keep me going, guys. Please, if you can keep them going, please do. And I hope I don't lose anybody. I mean, my subscribers have got to 48, which is great. But the things that I like the most is the fact that people are watching and they comment, because that keeps me sane. You don't want to see a mental Del Boy. Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. But you wouldn't want to see an upset one either. So with that, till next week, thank you and goodbye.